Good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the world. We all know Malaysia is in a mess, politically speaking. While the rakyat is struggling to keep their jobs and to put food on their tables, our politicians are busy trying to topple each other. They are trying to cling on to their jobs or trying to get other people's jobs. And look at it, we are staring at daily record numbers, COVID-19 numbers, and they are busy counting SD, statutory declarations, how many people have jumped across to their side or the other side. Okay, so both sides are counting. And they seem to be so out of touch. They seem to be so absorbed in keeping their powers or trying to regain powers. What can we, ordinary rakyat, powerless rakyat, do? Joining me tonight are two distinguished guests, moderation advocate Anas Zubidi and Jahabardin Muhammad Yunus, lawyer, columnist, activist, and writer, and all Penang Lang. Okay.
All three, yes.
All three, okay. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get on to the first questions. Okay, guys, as I was saying, we seem to be in bad shape. But what can we do as ordinary people? And that what can we do to stop these politicians from going about while we are struggling to solve the pandemic problem? Jabba, perhaps?
Okay, Chinwai, what you started off correctly, Chinwai.
Yeah.
The big problem now is there's a major perception. That perception is not doing well to us. I mean, as ordinary citizens on the ground, the first and foremost thing that they have is, of course, hope. That's the first thing they can do. But that hope can only be sustained if the perception around them is helpful. Now, when you have a perception that the politicians don't care for you, and you have that both sides are trying to see who can form the government, then the perception, then the hope becomes a little bit dashed. Yeah, I mean, I think that I would say that as a starting to get forward. Yeah.
There's, of course, a trust deficit in this country.
Of course.
And a lot of disdain for politicians generally. Anas?
Maybe since Jabardin has spoken about that, I think I'll take a few steps back.
Okay.
I don't even, I mean, we understand the politicians crave for power and they lost, for example, Pakatan Harapan, after tasting it for 22 months and they lost it. I mean, understand, you know. Penang people say, bokamuan lah, you know. Feeling, you know. But the logic is very flawed, you know, Chunmoy. What are they trying to do by counting numbers? Unless you have a majority, you don't try to bring down sitting prime minister, because if you take him down, you know what will happen is your arch enemy. I will assume that the Pakatan Harapan wanted, you know, do they want someone from UMNO to become the prime minister? So first, I think the logic is very flawed. Whatever they are doing, trying to count numbers, unless they have the numbers. But you know and I know it's Perikatan Nasional number, not Muhyiddin Yassin's number. Even if Muhyiddin Yassin is no longer the prime minister, somebody from Perikatan Nasional may have the number. Number two is, for people within UMNO itself, why wait now? You got 6 months from February. During the time of the emergency, Darurat, why didn't you do anything for 6 months? So for me, the logic is flawed, you know, and you both sides, I mean, both internal politics of UMNO and Pakatan Harapan seems to be illogical. They're causing the rakyat problem, as both, you know, you and Jabardin say correctly. Now, where is the logic in that? You know, you are doing all this, spoiling us, you know, our lives without a logical end. You know, that is my big question mark.
Jabba, you know that the 5-day special sitting, it was meant to discuss the COVID problem. I was looking forward to hearing some concrete ideas from MPs on what can be done to solve the numbers, to break it down, and how we could put on track Malaysia to reopen the economy. But of course, suddenly the issue of revocation of the emergency provisions pop up. The law minister surprised the whole country, surprised the king as well, and derailed the whole process. Suddenly, Parliament was no longer talking about the COVID-19 problem, but was talking about whether it was correct legally, constitutionally, on the provision Okay, and no, everybody seems to forgot what was the intention of the 5-day sitting. So the issue here is that it was hijacked or forgotten. Why is it that as a lawyer, okay, now what is your view that the politicians were so engrossed with this revocation, and everybody treated the parliament like a courtroom? Everybody was quoting from the constitution and their law books, but basically that COVID-19 was completely forgotten and downgraded.
You know, I think you raised a very important observation. Why I say it's important? Because this is the same thing that many people are saying. They say exactly what you're saying just now. They're observing it. That is why what a waste the 5 days of parliamentary sitting became. Now we have to look at it from two perspectives. On one hand, we have to admit that there is a political problem. There is. That's something that we should not deny, because this started from March last year. Whether you like it or not, without passing any judgments against this government, the perception is that the manner in which the government came into power is not liked by a certain segment of the population. And as far as the members of parliament in parliament are concerned, they themselves want this to be settled once and for all by a vote of no confidence or confidence. That's one aspect. Now, but you correctly say that while there is a political issue, right now we're not under normal circumstances. If we are under normal circumstances, then those issues must be raised in parliament, because we must never forget, whether there's a crisis or whether there's a COVID or whatever there is, we must always go by the process of parliamentary democracy. There should be no exceptions to that.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, these are abnormal circumstances. Now, under these abnormal circumstances, COVID is in play. Now, here, I remember what Professor Dr. Amri Baharudin of UKM Kita, he said something wonderfully brilliant. Now, he said, while politically, people are saying hashtag Kerajaan Gagal, meaning that this government has failed to do whatever necessary to bring about positive changes to COVID problems. But he asked this question. He said, why isn't there hashtag Pembangkang Prihatin? I thought it was very clever. So he's saying exactly what you are saying, Chun Wai. Meaning, while you say this government has failed, why you not go to parliament those 5 days, say, hey, look, you people have failed, but the opposition now have these things that you should do. Give their own suggestions, give what needs to be done. So that becomes a debate on whether or not how to tackle the COVID. How can you, for example, maybe there are 222 constituencies. And I remember, I think Anas had mentioned this before in some other talk, where he said that one of the best way to approach COVID would be where each of the members of parliament go down to their constituents. And if we look at it, it is something like managing a corporation itself, because in each of the constituency, you will have the state assemblyman again. So there's a downward flow to manage it. So these are the kind of things that they should have discussed. So basically what I'm saying is, while we should not forget that there is a political issue that needs to be resolved, there is a legal issue that needs to be resolved. What about the health crisis issue? Why is everybody forgotten about the health care issue that we're facing now?
I think, Jabbar, I think we have said this before, but I don't mind repeating this. To be fair, and well, credit must be given, some of the younger opposition MPs actually rose to the occasion. I think that Nurul Izzah from the PKR and her colleague from Lembah Pantai, Fahmi, and of course DAP's Onn Ken Meng, they actually took the opportunity to raise a very concrete suggestions, and even at some point they even helped the government to correct some of the wrong information. Like for example, Onn Ken Meng stood up to help Asmin because the perception has always been that factories are the biggest clusters, and Onn Ken Meng said that no, not entirely correct. While the factories are operating in a proper manner with SOP, it's when the workers go back to their dormitories or go back to their homes, that's when the problem starts, when they start mingling around or going to the pasar malam. So I thought that was a very fair of him to do so, to raise above politics. Now, I just want to ask a hypothetical question to two of you now. So there's a lot of pressure to the Prime Minister, who obviously has not earned the mandate. Let's be fair, he has not earned the mandate of the Rakyat.
Yep.
When you go through whatever doors, it doesn't matter who opened the doors, back door, front door, but basically that you have not earned the mandate. And that so you have this problem as you suggested. Now, assuming that the PM were to say that, okay, I'm sick and tired, okay, I'm leaving today, I'm quitting, if that's what you want, what will be the consequences?
Well, you see, the thing is, I think quitting now, I would say for what, you know? Yeah. So, you know, what we're going to have is another crab party, you know, the politik ketang. The reason being is very simple, because there's no one person with a strong, or no party with a strong majority. So if we change Prime Minister right now, we are going to go back to square one. Another group of people will start questioning, does he has the majority? And in Malaysia, you know, this counting seats and all that is now futile, especially right now. It's just a waste of time. Because we do not have a non-party hopping law, you know, numbers are very fluid, you know, it's very fluid. So if he were to resign now, somebody else become the what you call Prime Minister, unless that person has a 20 or 25 seat majority, we are back to square one, you know, Chin Wai. We are back to square one. Yeah. In fact, one must remember, in 2008, the first time when the Barisan Nasional lost a 2/3 majority, it wasn't a slim majority. They just lost 2/3 majority. There was Langkah September. There was trying to push to change the government by a frogging, by Langkah September. So in other words, I hate to say this, but I mean, the last time I think we got some flag, you know, Jabudin, you and I, because we said that, you know, tak matang, you know, all those things, yeah. Yeah, basically they are not mature enough, or they are not, you know, they don't have sportsmanship lah. If the other person win even by one seat, you should respect, you know. We don't have that. So no, I think the change of Prime Minister does not help unless he has a really, really, you know, big majority of 20 seats. You know, we're back to square one. They're going to have a lot of politik ketam again, you know, on and on and on. Okay, Jabudin, what do you...
Again, Chin Wai, see, the question you asked, one is, why in the world that question arose? I mean, that itself is a question, you know, why in the world that question arose? Not only you, many are asking, and again, that's a national question. What will happen if tomorrow the Prime Minister resigns? I mean, the knee-jerk reaction is, okay lah, you want me to go, I go. And the people say, okay, now he's gone, what do you do? The question is, why do we even ask that? Now, again, I come back to two. We have to be clear to me. To me, we've got to be clear. One, we have a political instability issue. The other one, we have a public health issue. Now, to me, ordinarily, politics should not affect public health issues at all. Because let's not forget, and probably it's good for us to be reminded again and again, that question only arose because in this country, we have over-reliance on politicians and over-reliance on the political administration. And that's something extremely sad after 63 years of independence. And we're going to celebrate Merdeka very soon, yeah? So what that shows that our over-reliance on politicians means that our institutions are not properly in place. Now, let's not forget that the non-political part of the government, the administration, the civil service, and that should already be in place. You are concerned, I'm concerned, many of us concerned because we are really saying in another way that while we have one or two MPs who are good, and even that we should not even say, you know, with respect to Chin Wai, while we recognize that they're good MPs, we encourage them, etc. But we should be in a situation where our country does not rely at all on the political administration other than merely to govern and to create policies. Even in their absence, we should already have institutions that are capable of. And in this case, we're talking about what issue? Health issues. And therefore, we need to have a good health system. Here I say that yes, if the government is, if Muhyiddin resigns tomorrow, fine. You know, we need to go through the democratic process, no choice. If there's going to be election, it's going to be, you know, going to take a risk, etc., etc. But the focus on us should be now, before we say, I want to resign. I think the opposition and the government should come together before that election or whatever and say, look, in the absence, we need to put these things in place first. I mean, call it by whatever name you want. We need to have a certain committee, if you like. I wouldn't say Majlis Keselamatan Negara because I have some experience with them, and I'll reserve my comments unless someone provokes me to asking specific questions about them. Other than that, I'm saying that, we need to have some kind of committee which says what's going to happen in the interim. How are we going to manage our health issues? No doubt the frontliners are doing extremely well, but still we are breaking down. We have a lot of flaws everywhere. So how do we sort that out? That would be the issue.
But Jabbar, you know that in real politics, politicians can't wait to take over the job the next day or even by midnight. That's how it works, okay? Yeah. So, I mean, that reality and what we want sometimes are quite far apart. And you know that a lot of people will say, oh, let's have a general election soon if the government fails to show their majority. It really frightens me because I know that after the Sabah experience, if we have got to go through a general election, maybe next year, January, February, March, once we hit the herd immunity and we have achieved double dosage for most of our population, at least 60%, 70%, the very thought of having a general election like next month really, worries me because that a lot of people are not thinking straight because of the anger, resentment towards the government or to politicians. They just want to get rid of the Prime Minister and to have the general election like right now, tomorrow. What is your view on that?
I think, well, this is my thought. I think an election now would not be a very good election. Number one, we have a situation whereby many may not even go down to vote. I would find it very scary to go down and vote because Delta variant, etc., is real. So you may have a situation whereby many may not go to vote. Number two, some may vote out of anger, as you say, out of frustration, and they may not make the right choice.
I pray that we won't go for elections for at least 2 years. Let me give and I also agree, Jabari, about a few of the points just now. Number one is not even February next year. I would say wait a little bit longer. We do not know how the COVID-19 will react to all our vaccine or like, because it's still work in progress. We may think right now, we have double dose and all that, everything is okay, but let's be a little bit more more careful. I hope that I'm glad the other day when the Prime Minister was announcing, I said, oh my God, I hope he's not going to announce, since the Agong don't believe in me, I'm going to, call for election. I was actually, in panic when he announced it. Okay, 1 more month, okay, at least we delay 1 month, doesn't matter. Now, I think the first thing we need to make sure, put it through that even if we hit 80%, 100%, vaccination, no election until we really know how to deal with COVID. And as Jabari said correctly, the turnout, I tell you what, the turnout in urban areas will be very, very poor. Especially non-Malays will be smart enough not to come out. I'm sorry, I'm not being racist or racial here, but the non-Malays will be smart enough not to go out. I mean, you look at right now, the percentage of the Malays getting COVID and dying, it's much higher than the proportionate of the country. Number two, it will be very sad. Who will go out and vote? The elderly in the kampongs. They're the one that will be, the politician will say, come out, all this agama, bangsa, everything, and there'll be a lot more of our elderly to die. This is what's going to happen. So these are the things that you're right. And who's going to lose? A lot of people lose. Probably, those who are holding more urban seats should be more worried because the urban people will be smart enough not to go. Unless there is a voting using internet or whatever it is. Now, of course, if let's say they still force an election, yes, there's a positive side to it. I know it's bad to say this, but what will happen is this: there'll be many of us dying of COVID, but we will have 100% immunity within a 1 month period, because the whole country will be actually no longer COVID free, almost 100%. Everybody who's supposed to get COVID will get COVID. We'll have lots of loss of life, but we will actually have what you call 100% people in the country having what you call the immunity. But we should, with all our contacts and our, you're in Pemulih now, Chunwai in the group. Please tell them, please, no election for at least 2 years, not just the next few months. If we really care about the country, we really think we don't be too cocky lah. We were cocky the last time. Remember the first few months?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, we are okay, we are great kind of thing. I think we celebrated a bit too early. So I
Right.
don't think we should do the same mistake, come September, October, November, December, just because we hit, let's say, 80%. The politicians must start thinking that, your power is not the most important thing. More importantly, as Jawaharlal said, look at the issue right now, which is, the health issue, and of course the economy issue. Look at these two, and that's it.
I think,
If I may,
Anas, I just want to add on to what you have said. It is actually very disheartening and even very sad that when Rakyat are having problems trying to keep themselves safe, I'm sure you all have friends, relatives,
Right.
I mean, who have passed away, who have been hit, and even for me, I mean, very close family members, after 2 dosage, and they still got infected at category 3, and some are really in hospital beds, and then there are friends who have lost their jobs as the main breadwinner. They got kids, they got wife. They really have problems actually putting food on the table. They are selling off their cars, selling off their assets, and they're living on their bank, what do you call it, the depleting savings. And yet it's really crazy to have these politicians really out of touch and really sheer selfishness to talk about just wanting to take power. Why are they so out of touch, or they just don't care? Your views?
Now, Anas was talking about let's not go election for the next 2 years. And you asked this question, you said this, look, people are suffering, people are out of job, are the politicians deaf, not looking at it? Now, if you combine those two, then you come up with a very interesting solution or interesting proposition. Now, look at Anas. Anas says, let's not go election for the next 2 years. The question is, why not go for election for the next 2 years? Correct me if I'm wrong, Anas. You're saying it because you're concerned about infections, right? Is that right?
People, yeah.
So he's worried about infections. Now, to me, infections is an issue solved by who? Not by politicians. Infections are medical issues. They are solved by doctors and the health service, if you like. Now, the question that you asked about creating jobs, etc., again, Chun Wai, if you look at that, those are not the responsibility of the politician either. Hang on a minute. It's not. It is those experts, those who are the economists, etc., who are advising the government. So what is the role of the politicians? So you look at the role of the politician, is only, to me, 2 things. Number one is they need to facilitate the environment. They need to facilitate the situation. Number 2 is they need to pass through parliament whatever that needs to be passed. Only these 2 things. So what I'm proposing and suggesting, this idea is a marriage of your concern and Anas' concern, is that maybe in the next 2 years, if you don't go for election, have a committee. But this committee, my suggestion, could be not orthodox. That committee should be headed not by a politician. The chairman should be a non-politician. In other words, in that committee, you have politicians sitting there for a specific purpose of the 2 reasons I said earlier: facilitating and passing laws, necessary laws in parliament, the budget, etc. And then you have the other people, the doctors, the rest, the economists, everything. And it's chaired by a non-politician. Why I say this? If we have a Mageran style whereby a politician is there, the political situation will never stop. Because each politician will want credit. Pakatan Harapan will want credit for themselves, UMNO will want credit for themselves, etc. So I don't know whether it's workable or not, but it's something we never had COVID before. It's something that we need to seriously think about. Have a committee. I can't remember, there was a country, I can't remember which country it was, where that country was actually run by professionals for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
So we need to have a committee whereby the chairman must be a non-politician, made out of 3 sectors. One sector is the politicians, the other sector is the medical fellows, and the rest are the economics. And for the next 3 years, they run it. And that also solve a lot of politicking. Because you must remember, Anas, if we postpone for the next 2 years, we are looking at the next 2 years of massive politicking and influence gathering.
Yeah.
Break it away from this moment.
Okay, guys, I hate to disappoint you guys, okay? But again, I don't think that Anas will ever get his wish fulfilled. 2 years is a long time. 2 weeks is also a long time, all right? And then Yunus, Adis Jabbar, the politicians are not going to take orders from a non-politician with no power, okay? And I'm not too sure constitutionally that is allowed.
It's allowed.
Okay, yeah, I'm not too sure about that. But for the time being, while we are struggling with this situation now, I want to bring back a bit about the importance of political stability and involvement of politicians, whether we like it or not. Okay. Okay. If we were to smoothly open up the economy, put it on track, and then we have managed to bring down the number of cases, the number of people in this country are properly vaccinated. There's a third issue. As I said, this is a third jeopardy. In other countries, there's only two jeopardy. They have problem with vaccination and problem with the economy, but never political instability. So even if we have achieved the first two, if we don't have political stability, which is actually the hallmark of Malaysia for the last 60 years, people come to invest in Malaysia because they know tomorrow I'm going to deal with the same prime minister. Next week is the same prime minister. But now, if I got few billions, why would I want to invest in Malaysia? I'll go to Cambodia and Vietnam. I know for sure there's no real election in Vietnam. It's the same guys running the country. If I come to Malaysia, oh my God, it's going to be a prime minister in the next, or maybe three prime minister in the next 3 years. So what is why is political stability so important for Malaysia?
I think this is a really concerned area. Yeah? A highly concerned area, political, investment, and not only that, if you track our gross domestic saving rates has come down since 2010 to about 26% now, from almost 40. So we don't have money enough to pump internally. As you said correctly just now, also, Junoy, that now people don't have money anymore. In fact,
Yes.
the report have said that I think there's an increase of about 200,000 households from M40 to M40 to B40, and
Correct.
everyone go down. Yeah. Now the problem has started even earlier, Junoy. Actually, even a few years ago, before the COVID-19, many what you call investors are thinking not to come to Malaysia because of rasuah. Okay, now it's double whammy. We have the rasuah issue. We still have this political instability, and this is a big double whammy. So unless we have foreign investment throwing in money, we are not going to have enough cash to run the country. Now, not just we, in a sense, I'm talking not just the government. We have done ICNR one round and all those things. In other words, Malaysians who are, especially those at the middle class and the lower group, they have taken their money out from the APF now. Yeah. There's no more money to take out for one more round. So this is it. We are at the tail end of where we're going to get money. So if the politicians still, behave the way they behave right now, we are going to spiral into something bigger than we ever thought of before, because the country doesn't have money and the people does not have money.
Anas, I want to jump in before I forget. Okay, you mentioned that the declining middle class, they have slipped down to B40. Okay, now, because that they have slipped down to B40, we know for sure that the amount of revenue that can be collected will also decline.
Yep.
So the government will have less money. Right. Okay? And on top of that, the savings in all the agencies are depleting. Right. And I know for a fact that the unemployment figure will also go up, and it will be announced very soon. These are,
I think 11%, yeah.
And these are numbers that a lot of people do not seem to grasp. I mean that a lot of us, many of us get very angry. We think that by changing things will happen, but seriously, the numbers are really, really scary, and that unless the politicians really wake up and do something for us, we're going to be in trouble. Now, the question here is, if we cannot rely on the politicians to do the job, and if our civil servants, which Jahabuddin think that can do better, but realistically speaking, what can we, Rakyat, what can we do to help ourselves in the absence of strong leadership and in the absence of strong government? What can we do?
Well, if I may venture, in my head, the first thing that came to my head was what Chuna, we've been doing for the past 2 decades actually, with the Rapera movement, for instance, where I say the 2 values of thinking and compassion. That's one aspect. But you talk about what can we do as a rakyat in the country, because we can't rely so much on the politicians. Now, number one, we have to use the COVID, we have to use the COVID as a good lesson for us, the eye opener. There are many problems that we already know happen, like Anas pointed out, Rasuah and so on and so forth. But we never really open our eyes because the suffering wasn't there. And this time around, we really suffered, and from there we learned. Now, to answer your question directly as to what the rakyat can do, who is the rakyat? Now, I'd like to divide the rakyat into three groups. One is the public sector. Now, let's not forget that those in the public sector, they are also the rakyat, meaning the civil servants, the police, the enforcement officers, everybody, the immigration officers, all of them must see themselves as a rakyat. The problem arises when those in the civil service see themselves as part of the government against the rakyat. That's the problem. So that's the mentality that the civil servants should throw away and see themselves as they are part of the rakyat. Because, Chun Wai, these civil servants are in a position where they can actually make life easier or more difficult for the rakyat, the other rakyat. So the civil servants. Now the second group of rakyat is the private sector. Those who are in the private, they have a role to play as well. And they're also the rakyat. So each and every one of them can do their things. For example, what you're doing is you're doing through education, opening up minds. Anas goes around giving trainings and so on and so forth, opening up minds as well. So we have to think in terms of long term. The third rakyat is the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, which are there are plenty. Even a simple body like the housing, what do you call them? These housing bodies. What do you call them? Bandar Utama's got resident associations, NGOs, Raperas, and so on and so forth. So all these. So these three groups, they have a role to play in each and every aspect. So that's one way, Chun Wai. Now, of course, whenever I say this, people may say, people like you have said it many times to me. Yeah, I know, Jabbar, you're very idealistic, but tomorrow. Now let's not brush that aside. Let's remember that Aristotle and Socrates were also accused of being idealistic during their time. But today's democracy is based on their idealism. So what I'm saying is, we need to build a culture in our country of looking far, not looking for quick solutions. Because politicians, Chun Wai, the way I look at it, from the time of Sparta, from the time of the medieval Chinese, Indian history, politicians will forever, until kingdom come, be short-sighted. They only want solutions for their term and nothing else. We, the Rakyat, cannot be like that. We cannot play along with them and say, that is real politics. We have to redefine real politics.
I think, Chun Wai, in terms of, maybe from my side, I would say this. There are a lot of things that we Rakyat can do. Firstly, we must be balanced. It's not that the government is not doing anything at all. The government, they are doing something. In fact, millions have been thrown into the economy, and a lot of help. And all that. I think they are, for example, the subsidy for workers is really helpful for even companies like mine. A little bit of subsidy, I put in my own so-called savings so that my people still have jobs. Okay, we don't have as much money as before, but we can still survive. Now, what happened is this. I think number one is we must not just separate the people from the politician, from the government and all that. We must say, how can we find what you call an equilibrium? We may not be greatly, like last time, a lot of money, but we have enough money. That's one. Number two is we need to see, for example, numbers have doubled up in terms of what you call that, the extreme poor. The absolute poverty has increased. So what we need to do is we have to identify, I know maybe people don't like the white flag, but there must be a mechanism to identify who really need food on the table. We should go for the most basic first. Food first, first, electricity, all these things, the basic needs, we need to identify. And they should be, I don't think there'll be like millions of them, maybe just probably maybe 100,000 people Malaysian. We must make sure that that will be done. And thirdly, we Malaysians who are still at least working and have some money at home, food and all that, we have to learn to deal and find skills, new skills to deal with the new norms. Now, this is something that we still have not done enough. While companies are doing, in a micro way, companies will call and say, how do we get our people to, change in the new norm? We need to have a national agenda. When you go back to your team of people, tell them we need a national agenda, how Malaysians need to learn to become effective, efficient, and productive in the new norm. There is no national agenda to it. How do we deal with working online? How do you deal with working at home? How do we maximize productivity while we're working at home? How do we deal with stress while working at home? Currently, what's happening, Choon Wai, is companies are left up to their own to do it. We need a national strategy on this. And that is something need to be brought from the top. You can start from Pemule, you can start with Azmin Ali, because under his care. But we have to have a national agenda on how to make our country productive, our people productive, and of course achieving. How do we get our people achieve in this new norm? And we need to also create new habits and new routines that we need to tell people. Not everybody knows, because I'm dealing with people, the new routines, like for example, if for example, a friend of mine cried, he says, I don't know how to work at home because my child keep on coming in, And I told her that your child must need to learn boundary. Just put something that mommy from 10 o'clock, mommy put this string here, you cannot come in. After that, you can come, things like this. So we need to give all these skills so that we need to get Malaysians as a whole to become productive during the new norm. Things like this cannot be left alone, let the market do it themselves. This is where we need leadership. This is where we need what you call a national, the TV, the news, the newspapers. We must go through this. When we do this, then we will win. Instead of complaining, we will come out more successful because as Jahabaddin said correctly, in 2 years' time, there'll be the new norm will still continue, even though we get to see each other. But we want to be able to be very productive right now in the current situation. Let's have strategies to do it. Yes, yeah.
Okay, can I say something before? Some of the things that Anas is saying, those are the kind of things that I would like to hear from the ministries. That's exactly what I meant by when I say that the civil service is so big. We should not forget that there are many, about 20 over 30 ministries now, I think. So in those ministries, you have all those civil servants. Now they can pick up. I like to hear things like what Anas said from them. Then they'll come up with current, effective, implementable policies. I just want to add that. Yes.
This Anas and Jabba, obviously that as you say that some things that the government have done well. I think that our vaccination exercise has been good. Although we started late, there have been, of course, arguments that why did we delay? Why did we get our supply late? But I think that in the current exercise, I think they have done well. And of course, been typically Malaysians, when the exercise goes well, when the quarantine beds are well, when the food are well, nobody sends any video. They don't upload videos to say they've done a good job. We Malaysians will send a video on Instagram when things are really bad. This is typically Malaysia. We are pretty bad in giving credit, but most times we are very good at kicking ourselves. Coming to that, I agree with you, Anas, that obviously that the COVID-19 is here to stay. It is going to be an endemic, and that it will come in various forms, in various variants. Okay, and we know that in UK, the numbers are almost 30,000 to 40,000 a day. But of course, those are category 1 and 2. But because most of the people down there have been vaccinated, the chances of them falling really sick will be low. But the numbers are still very high. It's just that they have got the strategy right by vaccinating almost the entire population. And we know that this one would continue. The strategy and the plan ahead will be an immediate plan, a middle plan, medium plan, and a long-term plan. And I like your idea that perhaps that we should make the opportunity of this crisis to galvanize every Malaysians, to be involved in a national agenda where everybody put their ideas together, work together to bring Malaysia forward. It should not be an agenda where it's top down, the Prime Minister says so, the Minister says so, but it should be input from everyone. Of course, it is impossible mathematically to put everybody's input, but I for me, speaking for myself,
with blockchain, all that nowadays you can. With internet.
Yes, I feel that Malaysians should be part of it, so they know that look, I have got my say, my ideas, so they're part of this national agenda, and this national recovery strategy to bring the country forward. And when that happens, you don't really need these bickering, these squabbling politicians, because they are bypassed. And social media and technology, as you said, allowed that to happen.
Yes.
Now, Jabbar, you know that as we head towards the National Day, many of us feel down. You know, it's probably the lowest ebb ever. Is there hope for Malaysia?
I like to believe from the ashes the phoenix shall rise. And human beings have been around for millions of years. And that's because we as human beings are resilient. Now we become more focused in our country, Malaysians. We have a very interesting, unique starting. Malaysia is very unique. You know, we were immigrants, etc. America prides itself as a land of immigrants. They forget we are a land of immigrants. And not only that, we have embraced each other more better than even America or any European country has done. Please, that's a fact all over the world. So in other words, that shows that Malaysians, whatever difficulty it is, we are resilient. So as Merdeka comes, I would say this: let us try to be Merdeka from our past faults. Let us be Merdeka from everything that's going wrong for the past 63 years. And let's achieve true independence. Number one, as Anas always argues about Rasuah, let's be serious about corruption.
Yes.
Number two, let's be serious about upgrading our institutions and things like that. So that should be our Merdeka. I think we look forward to it in that sense, that this COVID is a painful lesson, but it's a blessing for us to come out and be truly Merdeka.
Anas, you know that in many countries, even in ASEAN, if they were in such a position where the majority of the government is so thin and unpredictable, what would have happened in these countries compared to Malaysia?
I think you're right here about asking this question. You know, I think we should. I'm still very positive. You know me, very positive. We have, number one is we have fantastic constitution, and we have actually quite a workable system, and we have great people. You know, like you say, another country now could be riot, killing, looting. You know, Malaysians, when we don't have food, we just put a flag, red flag. Sorry.
White flag.
Yeah, white flag. You know, I don't understand why some politicians were angry about it. Now that is good.
Yep.
They don't have food. They don't go around killing people. They don't go around looting. So they just put a right flag. They say, look, I need help. We have a great bunch of people in this country. We are resilient. It's just that sometimes we spend too much time thinking of politics.
Yes.
I mean, for example, you said correctly, Chun Loy. You know, I stated a few times in my Twitter. I congratulated Khairy Jamaluddin and his team. You know, it's not easy to manage 400,000 people, you know, jabs a day. You know. I mean, you run a company before as a managing director. You know, manage 10 people so susah. You're managing thousands of people and producing 500 jabs a day. Come on, you know, that is a super talented person. Okay, so and when I did that, I got attacked. I was called a rat, lapdog, you know, getting business from government and all this kind of nonsense. You know, so we have that issue. We have to try to block it. Now, we Malaysians, okay, I tell you what, I think this is my hope for this Merdeka, yeah. You know, there's a song by Earth, Wind and Fire. Maybe our age will know. It's called Come to...
Our time.
Come to...
Jahabar may say that he doesn't know. Yeah. You know, he's younger.
Yeah. He says, come to see victory in the land called fantasy. We must see victory in the mind. Yeah. Yeah, come to see victory in a land called fantasy, loving life a new decree. If we can see first in our mind victory. Now, how do we want to move forward? I think we must create new habits and routines that will make us find success. What are the new habits we need? What are new routines we need so that we can find success? And I think one of the biggest problems the last 1.5 years is that we do not study this. For example, this is going to be controversial. Yeah, you cannot stop an elderly man from the kampong to want to go for Friday prayers. There is a routine that he is so familiar with. Unless you give him another routine, maybe you can come out with a temporary fatwa that say you can pray at home while watching TV. That would have solved the problem. You know, and I know one of the biggest crowd that's, you know, getting sick and dying are elderly people in the kampong or elderly people, in suburban areas. So we need to do this. Okay, we Malaysians wake up tomorrow and says, I need to find new routines, new habits that will make me successful even during this time of COVID, even during the time of having politicians squabbling for power, even the time where, just now I didn't manage to answer. I don't think our politicians got no heart. I think individually, Chun Wai, they are good people. But the moment they go into this political framework, into the party, when they go into the, into the parliament, and when you talk in front of people, your ego is even more boosted. And you forget yourself. Yeah. So I think we need to just stop for a while. Even our MPs, please find new routines, find new habit, even at the parliamentary level. When you go back to parliament on September, please do 3 things. I asked for 3 things only, Chun Wai. This is my Rasuah Buster thing. You can see behind me here, Rasuah Buster. We ask you to do 3 things, okay? When you go back to parliament, focus on COVID-19. Focus on anti-Rasuah. Let me explain why Rasuah should be right at the center, and the economy. Yeah, because if you don't do something about Rasuah, even when we have political stability, the investment would not be very happy to join us, because that was already a problem before COVID-19. Don't sweep it down the carpet, because that is a problem. So let's deal with these 3 things: COVID, Rasuah, and economy. And we Malaysians, stop, I totally agree with Javaddin, stop thinking that we need the politicians all the time.
Okay, Jabbar, I'm going to ask you to give a last one. Anas has spoken quite a bit and have stolen your time. I was about to tell him that perhaps that he could use his training to train the politicians. We have come to the conclusion of tonight's program. Thank you very much, guys. Anas, Jabbar, for joining me tonight. And to all Malaysians, there is hope. Believe in Malaysia. Believe in your fellow Malaysians. We can work together. Menang bersama. Thank you. And good night.
Good night. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.